Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And as we get ready to jump into the interview with Hari, I just wanted to do a quick introduction for him. My guest today is Hari Kiran Chereddi. He's a managing director of HRV Global Life Sciences and CEO of New Horizon Global Pharma, who's been recognized on the Forbes Global CEO list and has transformed multiple industries through innovative business strategies. So with that, welcome, Hari. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Don. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And as we get ready to jump in, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background and a little bit of what it is that you do today?
Okay, that is a lot packed into one question. Yes, so I'll try. So, computer science engineer by qualification. Did my MBA in supply chain stateside, um, and then moved to work with the high street banks. The last of which was Bank of America, in which I was leading business operations for Asia Pacific. But interestingly, I always had the urge to build,
Mm,
and especially not just manage what exists, but create what does not. And that led me to exit the corporate world at a very, very young age of about 28. And back in the day, a lot of people wouldn't see a 28-year-old founder in a lot of high regard, and they'd say, "Okay, you haven't grayed or you haven't lost hair like I have now," and they would not look at that and say, I moved out and started a company in clean tech. And one of the very, very early companies, in India, which was doing solar power, LED, energy efficient lighting, and quickly, exited that company in a couple of years and moved over to getting into pharmaceuticals, especially in manufacturing generics. Again, if people who know and people who are talking, looking at this, have seen the Indian map a little, they would at least know that southern India is where most of the generic bulk is made, and that's where we, started this company, and then exited that in 2018 and started something completely new, and that this is in the same industry, which is the generic or the bulk drug industry, which is where most of your um, Advils or your Napra or the Nyquils and the Dayquils that you take in the US, or all the OTCs that you take, and also prescription drugs. Across the board, what has helped me personally is that how is it that I have focused on solving real world problems, by building agile and globally scalable models. So today, we're India's first, company to be actually doing a completely asset-light virtual model, taking these drugs that are made and which are given access to companies and patients across the world. So uh, and I know I've tried to pull in a lot into that 1.5 minutes, but I'm happy to elaborate as you take the cue.
Yeah, I think I mean I again, your background is cuts across a lot of different industries and a lot of different areas. So, how does your experience between, Bank of America and your operations experience, help you right now with your, entrepreneurial ventures? There has to be things that you learned along the way that are just fundamental, and some of the things, some of the ways that you look at the world, and some of the ways that you also sort of tackle problems.
Mhm. At Bank of America, one of the things I learned in a big way was the value of some systems thinking and specifically how to build scalable frameworks. Then moving a little further to driving operational efficiency and also managing risk with something which is often forgotten, which is with discipline.
Mm,
So managing risk with discipline is something that actually came in, very, very strongly from Bank of America. With native experience in Six Sigma, Kaizen. I actually got the front row seat to see how global capital markets operate under extreme pressure. It shaped how I approach decision making today, which is with structure, speed, and precision. So operations is to me is where chaos meets structure,
Hmm.
and that discipline never leaves you. And as the saying goes, once a banker, always a banker. Even today, I think in terms of efficiency, risk, return, and structure that can just be applied to different industries. So it gave me a lens, to spot anything that is asymmetrical and probably make very bold but calculated decisions. So moving a little closer to my entrepreneurial journey, I would say it's not just enough to have a big vision. So, keeping all this, we also need the systems to bring this to life. So that balance between dreaming big and executing precisely is what I took from time in banking. It taught me how to think long term, but act with structure, and how to chase opportunities, but also manage the downside. So today, when I build companies, the mindset that has been with me for so long helps me scale fast without losing control. Vision gives us the direction, but systems give us the momentum and sharp execution. Because um, simply put, vision without execution is illusion. So
I think that's I mean, there's so much in there that is important overall. I just would like to sort of ask you, um, a business question based on where my organization currently is. So I was having a conversation yesterday, and this keeps coming back to me because it was one of these moments where, you know, I, I s- I love having outside entities come back and say and challenge you and say, hey, you should be thinking about kind of the next 10 steps. And my point back was, look, the most important thing I feel like right now for my organization is two things. It's number one, we have to be very focused on growth, and then we have to be focused on scalable systems. Those are the only two things I care about right now. I mean, I get that there's another 50 things that I could go do, and I get that there's more growth that could be had, and I could accelerate things and things like that. But how do you, as a business leader, think about when is the right time to scale? Because at least for me, this has stuck with me now for the last 24 hours because I had this conversation very early yesterday, and I sort of wonder, what do you think in terms of the right time to start thinking about pivoting or scaling an organization?
so I mean, a little bit of a theoretical response to it
Mhm.
before I bring it to what I've seen. So in typical sense, any right time to scale is probably telling yourself that you have earned the right to. It's like scaling too early, you're amplifying chaos. Scaling too late, you're missing the window. So for me, when your systems run smoother than your story, when your customers are pulling, not just when you're pushing, and when your execution is predictable under pressure, these are three dynamics that I generally put out on a whiteboard and say, hey, this is not something that is being force fit at any level. So that's where we actually look at it and say scale becomes a multiplier and not a mess. So,
Right.
that's one big way that I have taken some of these things back and looked at it, and I've said that one big challenge with new industries, and in fact, if I see my career, how I have actually transitioned, it was about changing the narrative around what the outsider could achieve in them. In fact, one of the things that have actually worked with me is typically a banker coming and doing clean tech and then going into pharmaceuticals and then expanding off, from there and trying to build something which actually scaled so quickly in the last, 6 years. And that, to me is where, it's a very, intriguing, aspect. But one thing that I will personally, think that as a founder yourself, and also, to the others who are, uh, looping in, I'd say it's more like also look at a deeper calling. In fact, one of the things that I'd often be very intrigued looking at some of these pharmaceutical products as I was growing up. So when I look back at it, if I were to attribute 50% of my career to banking, I'd actually now already be attributing 50% of my career to pharmaceuticals. So so that's typically how I have seen, these things scale. Um, and one other aspect, a little bit of a softer aspect here, it has like, how is it that you earn the trust,
Mm,
prove the credibility, and show up consistently until the results actually start talking to themselves? But that's a big part of, how you bring scaling as part of it, because sometimes a lot of people go in, put so many systems, around the place that actually you can't even move your foot, from point A to point B. And I said that is like shooting yourself with a bazooka and saying, you know what, I have the entire thing, and frankly, I look back at it and I say, okay, depends on who's asking. So that's a question that we'll have to go back to look at and ask. So yeah. I don't know if I've been able to bring you close to that thought that has been there in your head.
yeah, no, I think there's a lot again in that answer, but I also think that there's a lot that that is very helpful for the frame of mind that I have as well. That
Mhm,
I just I think having the focus that we have is critically important for the organization
mhm,
right now. If you were to talk to me
right.
6 months from now and I'm still at the same point, I think that would be the time to kind of question, hey, are you just hanging out here because it's comfortable? Or are you, is this, not really, um, because you're not challenging yourself enough. But
Mhm,
back to your point as well, in terms of putting in too many systems or having things be too restrictive. The one thing I used to tell people all the time with regards to implementing standard work was, if you could imagine in American baseball, if you can imagine a batter in a batter's box, the
mhm,
rules don't control how the batter stands in the box. It doesn't control how the batter swings the bat. It doesn't control any of that stuff. You have to let the batter
right.
swing and take their own position. And it's important as well, to understand that whatever sort of operational standards that you have, they can't be so restrictive or so controlling that it takes the human element out of it. We have to be able
Yeah.
to essentially move and be human as well. So, you've transitioned from successful corporate career to founding, is it Sujana Energy, and then later
Mhm.
ventured into pharmaceuticals. What are what drove the career shifts, and what were some of the key challenges that you faced?
Each shift came from a place of two interesting emotions. One is discomfort, and the other is curiosity. So I left a corporate career not because I had a perfect plan, but because I knew I had more to build. Clean tech was, was a bet on the future of sustainable energy. One of the things when I look back, I'd say that probably I did it a little too early in the day. And now the way people understand all this and the need for some of these things, I kept thinking that maybe I should have done it like a decade later. But hey, I exited, I made money, why not? And then and as I was earlier saying, pharma was always a deeper calling because as I was a young adult, I would obviously be looking at different forms of medicines, packaging, and would keenly be reading all the labels, especially. Would then go online, and these were the days when there was not much of Google out there. And then read about the drug, its composition, the manufacturer, what does it do, and what's the indications. For a engineer to be actually reading this, was a little bit of a surprise. A lot of people thought that I'd be the savvy computer science engineer who would look at systems a little differently. Uh, but one big challenge that I saw wasn't just learning new industries. It was just trying to how to earn that trust. How to actually see how an outsider can come into the business and actually change the way existing people in the industry are looking at it. So today I use these lessons to solve complex, especially pharmaceutical challenges, uh, by using systems thinking and not just by putting them in silos. So, I think I have seen that real innovation often shows up, at the intersections, more so when you connect ideas across industries. So that's been a big part of, what has worked for me personally.
Mm. Yeah, so I mean, it's so important, but also uh, it's funny. The interesting part of this conversation, I feel like, as well, is that I feel like so many of us have broad interests. Um, when I sort of look at a few of these things, right, whether it's on the clean tech side or even on the pharmaceutical side, um, it's almost like you're plotting a path um, that will, as you look back, be able to afford you the ability to say, I made an impact on the world, and here is
Mhm.
kind of what I hope to leave behind, right? Um, anyway, it's more, speaking much more theoretical now, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I'm just thinking that as you look back at all of the impact that you have, as you move forward, it feels to me like you'll be able to say that you touched a lot of areas, but they also
Mhm.
would have an impression on mankind as well.
Yep.
So
Hoping to do that.
can you describe your role as a managing director at HRV Global Life Sciences, and then also as CEO of New Horizon Global Pharma?
Sure. So, as most founders, would do, role's been around driving growth, building global partnerships, and keeping us ahead of the curve. We went back, changed or challenged the way pharma companies were looking at models. We built a virtual asset-light pharma model. So today, we don't own factories, but we bring together top US FDA approved partners across India right now. And here is where our company and my role gets most interesting, is where a lot of companies have tried such partnerships in the past, but our success essentially came from the choice of products, deep customer relationship, and regulatory speed. The big challenge is moving fast while staying fully compliant. A lot of people miss one or the other. So I focus on setting the vision, but my teams take ownership and run with it. So that way, it's actually easy for me to stay agile and at the same time scaling globally as well. So,
Very good. Um, so tell us a little bit more about HRV Global Life Sciences and New Horizon Global Pharma. How do they
mhm.
differentiate themselves in the pharmaceutical market, and what is their mission?
Our mission is quite simple, and it's about making high quality drug substances easy to access, fast to deliver, and fully reliable without the overhead of the traditional manufacturing or the regulatory challenges that most companies have been facing. So, as I said earlier, we're India's first integrated virtual pharma company. No factories, no baggage, a network of US FDA approved partners, digitally unified and globally certified. In fact, this is something that we drive across the board, where we say that we are digitally unified and globally certified. So that's something that has been our mantra for a while. um, so my role becomes very strategic, where a lot of companies have attempted, as I said earlier, such models. Um, we have seen that this combination is what makes our model very, you know, trustworthy, working, and scalable right now. Probably a totally new model in the brewing. The next few months are going to be interesting as our model scales further, because in 6 years, if we've been able to scale to this level, a lot of companies are now looking at saying that the real edge is that we are not just offering products. We're delivering trust, we're delivering speed and a compliance in a supply chain that's usually anything but simple. I think COVID showed us a lot of examples of how some of these supply chains and some of these um, drug backings were very, very, very fragile. And this is something that we have actually taken on as a uh, mission to build, especially using the digital aspects and using artificial intelligence. In fact, I fondly tell a lot of people, we are a little, we're almost a COVID baby. In fact, when we started looking at it, and that's where we that's where we were able to scale. And to me that was a large opportunity for us to completely change the way things were being seen by companies worldwide, and also with manufacturing setups being looked at very, very differently.
Yeah, so I don't often take the direct questions that aren't directly in line with what we're talking about, but in this case, I see that I think it's pronounced Anaruda Sharma has asked a question. Impressive achievements on your behalf. How do you think innovation shapes the future of life sciences? I think this is an interesting question to kind of throw in. Um, so the question is, how do you think innovation shapes the future of life sciences?
Mm. Yeah, but innovation
Yeah,
shapes the future of life sciences.
yeah. So I guess if I were to sort of frame up the question in my
Mhm,
mind, um,
mhm,
you kind of think about all the things that currently are happening in tech and AI and compute power and the ability to develop drugs faster, to get through regulatory processes hopefully faster. um so that I think the overall question is, how do you think that there will be an impact on innovation in life sciences? Yeah.
Sure. So innovation isn't just shaping the future of life sciences. In my view, it's redefining the rules completely. And the industry used to be very linear. It used to be drug discovery, drug development, drug delivery. Today, it is being compressed, digitized, and probably reimagined. And artificial intelligence is accelerating drug discovery. Regulatory tech is making compliance so much more smarter. Virtual models like ours are proving that you don't need just the physical manufacturing plants to build credibility. You need precision and speed. Trust is a fact that's automatically going to come once you show some of these activities. um, Future belongs to the companies that can actually integrate innovation across the chain. And if I were to talk off my cuff, I would say it would be from molecule to market. And
Mm.
without losing the scientific rigor in the process. And innovation is no longer a function. Innovation is more a mindset. And for life sciences to truly move forward, that mindset has to be baked into how we think, how we build, and probably how we lead. Because without that, it's just going to be that you're following the pack. You're not setting the dynamics, or you're not defining the rules of the game here. I mean,
Yeah, I
I mean,
I
not much of a elaborate answer, but whatever little I could think of.
no, I think it's important. I think it's an important point though, because it ties to it ties to an additional conversation I had at the beginning of the year. Um, the the ability for AI to have confirmation bias is pretty
Mhm,
strong. So if you
mhm.
believe something and you want, confirmation in that belief, it's not that hard to get AI to provide you an answer that falls in line with that without critical thinking skills, which I think are more important today than any other day in the world. Um, I feel as if people just aren't going to be able to sort of challenge these key things, as well. And so, back to innovation. I mean, having the ability to leverage the tools that are available, whether it's AI or
Mhm.
anything else, some other scientific, you know, foundational item, but then also be able to critically think and help teams sort of think through that, I think is a fundamental, um, thing is fundamental skill that's going to be needed as you go forward anyway, and ultimately it will sort of shape how we leverage the innovation that's available to us. But that's just my my take on the same thing that you just said is I think it's important to have that ability to
Yeah.
think through these things. So yeah. So you built companies. It amazes me that you have this sort of significant global presence, right? So you've reached across India, the USA, Switzerland, Lithuania, Dubai, and Turkey. You're currently sitting in Dubai. You were saying at the start of the interview, and so what strategies have you employed to really achieve such extensive market expansion?
To be to be very subtly put, I'd say niche product selection, regulatory strength, artificial intelligence and digital systems, and speed to market. I'd cut out the noise if I were to quickly put like four strategies on the table, and then I'd say these models are all about scaling, scaling without owning, partnering without acquiring, and solving real world customer problems. So that's something that we've cut out all the noise, and we've said, what we're going to focus is solving real world customer problems. And it's just not about growing. It's about growing smart and staying agile. So that's been like my top three that I would put on a piece of paper and tell myself every single day when I wake up.
Yeah, and I hear your operational background coming out in that as well. That's sort of
Yeah.
okay. So let's take out all the things that are going to just instantly sort of translate from country to country, and like let's
Mhm.
focus on the main things that we have to solve for here, and not let the other things distract us in our thinking as well. So your companies have filed U.S. drug master files and have several new drugs in the pipeline. Can you elaborate on any of the projects that you're currently working on and their significance?
So we have about a dozen US DMFs, about 12 of them in the last 1 year that we have filed, and about three certificate of suitabilities, which are for the Europe market. A big bold target for ourselves is about 100 US DMFs by 2027. Industry friends may take a smirk at it when they hear that number, and they'd say it just is ambitious, but that's the whole point. And we believe that the Indian pharma companies cannot lead just in volume, but we'll have to just move towards high value, high impact areas like orphan diseases, rare drugs, and complex molecules is what most companies are focusing on. um, our work also has been in building a pipeline that matters, products that serve unmet medical needs, backed by compliance and global relevance. So we're not just chasing scale for its own sake. We're building a portfolio that actually solves real problems in the global healthcare while raising the regulatory bar for India, from India to the rest of the world.
Very good. As an angel investor and mentor, what criteria do you use to select startups and emerging businesses to invest in?
This is where we're going to change. We're going to change. We're going to see the radical side of me then. Okay. So I often have always looked beyond pitch decks.
Mhm.
I always encourage and invest in founders who have more clarity and conviction and a track record of executing, hard things well. And again, this probably could be because of my operations, background and me being rooted in deep execution. It's about integrity over hype and execution over potential. So those two are like the north stars that I would be looking at. And I often mentor founders and tell them that folk, we are in this for the long haul, solving real problems, not just chasing the next funding headline. It's more focus on value over valuation and profits over hype.
Mm.
Most times you don't need the perfect plan, but you need the grit to move fast, learn faster, and stay grounded, in what truly matters. And then create something useful, sustainable. And once you've done these things which are useful and sustainable, scalability is just a function of this. And that's how long-lasting companies are made. And that's where even investors, as a founder, whenever anyone decides to sell or exit, they're actually selling an idea which is scalable. And most people tend to forget that as they do. They're like, oh, we built the next big idea, sold it to someone. I mean, what are they going to do about it? Is it a Lego piece set that you've sold to somebody? I mean, what are they going to do with it? And somebody needs to look at it, right? And then they should actually be thanking, saying, hey, man, Hari gave us this business, that actually is so cool that, we are just adding the rocket fuel to it, and we're just seeing this whole ship launch off, instead of saying, we've just fueled in kerosene and, expecting to light that, lamp to keep our house warm. So that's typically what I have pushed most founders to do. uh, and they think, I'm telling them the hard things first, but that's the reality. I think the sooner we realize that, the better it is for everyone who's involved.
Yeah, I mean, it, it's interesting to me how many founders look at the next, either the next funding round or the next, like look, we want to be acquired or we want to go public. And to me that's fine, but I mean, what happens at each one of those inflection points is disruption. And the disruption, if it causes collapse, it's what did you do? I mean, you created something that unfortunately, couldn't survive. It couldn't survive being acquired. It couldn't survive, going public. It couldn't survive, that next round of growth. um and I think having that in mind, that, hey, look, this thing that you put all this blood, sweat, tears, and energy into, all of a sudden could be, for naught, because of the fact that, you made a transition that either didn't help and provide the rocket fuel, as you said, versus the
Mhm.
kerosene, and you just lit everything on fire, and essentially, it's unfortunate, because then, I mean, as a founder, I just kind of think about, whenever I look back, I just want to see, continued growth. I don't want to see that, something just fell apart because of the fact that, somebody abused it, or didn't understand it, or whatever. If that's the case, then, you know, I, I would rather not sell. I'd rather, you know, keep what I have and continue to grow up myself and watch it continue to flourish. So, um, yeah. So just a couple of questions about you. I mean, one is, you're currently, pursuing an additional degree. So I'm just curious, what is the academic pursuit that you have? How do you see that influencing your professional work?
So pharmaceuticals is a highly regulated, inventory-heavy, manufacturing-intensive industry, and then where decisions, often affect lives and compliance. So, continuous learning has always kept me grounded, especially in science and the systems thereof. So, I'm currently pursuing, almost in this stage where I'm in the final submission of my thesis to get a PhD. And this is something that's going to allow me to explore the good manufacturing, good distribution, and with an angle of green manufacturing, a topic that directly impacts any company's operation. So it also forces me, to stay humble and intellectually curious. It's not often easy, as a founder, to actually go show up in a classroom and expect to actually learn, from a professor, and also stay humble. So this is something that actually has helped me in a big, big way.
Mm, very good. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
Okay, so they could be multiple. So let me take a, quick stab at that one. So one of the things that I would say that's stayed with me for a long, long time is about lead with clarity, not with control.
Mm,
And I've often realized that real leadership is about staying grounded, especially when things go wrong. And the advice, this advice changed how I build teams. And I have learned that great leaders don't micromanage. They align people with purpose and then step back. So for me, my calmness becomes my team's confidence. So, and that's something that, in a big way that affects what I do on a daily basis.
Very good. Hari, what inspires you?
No, I am a builder by nature. So what inspires me is the act of building, turning ideas into impact, if I may. And if it means that I draw energy from people and moments that push boundaries. I'm inspired by execution a lot, especially under pressure. So the operation, the execution focus doesn't go away. Also, the fact that value creation from scratch,
Mhm.
especially from those who actually choose persistence over comfort. And in fact, that's something that's stayed with me for like a decade now. And I think I don't know. I think I'll take it to my grave the way it looks like.
What concerns you?
Ah, okay, is when speed becomes the goal instead of a
Mhm.
byproduct. Uh, so if I were to elaborate that a little, it'll be like when speed is the only goal instead of being, a byproduct of clarity, execution. Um, what we've seen with our companies is that we can be agile without cutting corners. A lot of people think that, if you were to be fast, you can actually ignore some things. But across the industry, I see shortcuts being taken where speed comes at the cost of compliance, quality, or even long-term trust. That is the real risk, and that continues to concern me because agility is very powerful, but only when it is grounded in extreme discipline. Without
Mhm.
that, we can do. I mean, in the pharmaceutical industry, we've done agile modeling, we've done waterfall modeling, we've done a whole bunch of these things, and every single time we try to innovate about that. But again, what we're trying to do by doing this is just to bring us back to one system and say, hey guys, we're going to put our heads down, look at this, think what we can do very quickly with making sure that the discipline is intact. So, those are aspects that, have stayed with me. I have spoken to a lot of young men and women around the world and told them that this is what I would personally recommend that they do. This is something I've often told my children as well.
So important. Last question. What excites you?
Mhm. Disruption through design. Um, Yeah. So if I were to rethink what we did, I spoke about the pharmaceutical supply chain, I did talk about what we did during COVID. If I were to rethink that, how is it that we've applied artificial intelligence to actually work on things like forecasting, completely new models of referencing data from past sources, looking at what drug discovery opportunities are there. Even not to jump so big as drug discovery, even if I were to talk about simple improved chemical processes, that could be a big aspect that I've seen. And this design is available for us to use, and this is something that we are not taking full advantage of. What I've always believed is that if you're just following the standard, you're always behind it. Our goal is often to raise it. So, for us, when we look at a statement, and a lot of people ask me this saying, oh, what do you mean, India's first? And I said, when we're actually writing a standard here. So for somebody to actually start looking at following, whatever we're doing, and this is a model that has happened in other industries. It's not like something that has not happened. But again, in pharma, it has not happened because people always thought, oh no, no, nobody would actually look at you this way. You have to actually have these 7 points for you to be taken seriously. um, I originally was willing to believe it in 2018 and 19 when I started, but it quickly took that off the board within 1 year. And then, today, I'm just looking forward and saying, how can I hyperscale right now? So I'm not talking
Mm.
scale, I'm talking hyperscale. Yeah. So that's something that's exciting. Um, Yeah, but again, with the way innovation is at a groundbreaking speed, we love to see what this is going to look like.
Very good.
Hmm.
Well, Hari, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciated you being here and for our conversation. I learned a lot. I hope other people did as well. And I really appreciate your time and wish you a lot of luck in the future.
Thank you, Don. It was a pleasure. Yeah, you have a good rest of your day.